There's so many expectations when it comes to women's success in this society. And today, in Living Intentionally, I am so excited that we're finally going to break the mold. So don't go anywhere.
Welcome to Living Intentionally, the podcast that empowers driven women to get unstuck and to take their personal and professional lives to the next level. I'm your host, Carmen Benton. I am here to help you create the life you truly desire without burning out. And as a leading expert in living with amplified alignment between your mind, your energy, and your soul purpose, I'll be sharing valuable insights on mindset, energy, self-care, business, and much more. Plus, you get to hear from inspired women who have successfully built businesses and lives that are both meaningful and fulfilling. Join us as we dive into the topic that matter most and uncover the secrets to living intentional.
Welcome back. Today, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about breaking the mold of what being successful as a woman means. And to help me with that, I have a very special guest. Her name is Megan Smiley, and she's the founder of Megan Smiley Coaching, and she's also a podcast host that you should go check out, which is the Lawyerscape Pod. And she helps lawyers and other professionals who feel called to do something more creative and purposeful, ditch the grind, and design their own heart-centered businesses. And before she took the leap into entrepreneurship, she practiced corporate law and worked for the law school as a director of international programs. Her mission is to help people who feel stuck in unfulfilling professions launch businesses that align with their life visions, natural talents, and values. And I am so excited to have her here in the show today with us. We connected through LinkedIn, and then, it was like immediate, spark. And I was like, oh my God, I have to have her on the show because she speaks my language and I know it will resonate with all of yours. So welcome to the show, Megan. So nice to have you here today.
Oh, Carmen, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So let's start with your story a little bit, right? Because the bio doesn't cover, all the things that we go through. So let's start with your story. Like me, you were in corporate.
Yeah.
Then you moved to a little more relaxed environment.
Mm-hmm.
Jump into entrepreneurship, which is a very important distinction I want to make here when we talk. Like the reasons why we left that life was different, but yet still we decided to. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who's Megan?
So, I didn't know what I wanted to, I got out of college and I was a French and international studies major. I'm not sure, and so sort of for lack of a better, more clear idea, I went to law school and became a lawyer. No
big deal. I'm just going to become a lawyer.
I mean, it really was just sort of the backup plan. I'm laughing. I'm at my dad's house, and my dad, who was a lawyer, when I announced that he said, "Can't you think of something more interesting to do?" And I was like, "That's a problem. Not right now. I can't." So, I guess it's not shocking, given that that's how I got into the profession, that, once I got into it, I was kind of like, I don't really love this. I got into corporate law. Even on the spectrum of law practice, it was like not where I saw myself ending up. It wasn't horrible. Like you hear these stories about being a lawyer, like in the scheme of things, it was fine. I just kind of looked around and I saw the people ahead of me and I was just like, this isn't the life I want to live. I don't love this work. Even if I were doing this work in fewer hours, I just knew it was true for me that getting out of the practice of law was the right move for me. But at that time, I still didn't have that great of an idea as to what else to do. And something that I kind of fell into, which made a lot of sense, was transitioning into law school world, because I knew some people who'd done that in career. And I had this international sort of background. I'd studied abroad in law school. And I was like, I want to do international programs at a law school. Like it made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I, got a job doing exactly what I wanted in New York. And for a number of years, it was awesome. I was like, this is perfect. My hours are good. I'm meeting people from all over the world. Like that's it. I figured it out. But then it started to, it's almost like Goldilocks. It was like too much. And then I like overcorrected and it was too little. Like, I was just like, I'm just coming here and doing the same thing every day, like for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I was turning 40. And that was like kind of looming. And I just was really having this like existential crisis about what to do with the rest of my professional life. And nothing that made sense on paper, like all the options that I was looking at, they all just like almost made me sick to my stomach. I was just like, nope, I don't want to do any of those things. So I finally let myself just play. I took a photography class. I started a travel blog. I started my podcast. Like, I just started doing things that interested me. And that actually took me into interior design. So I started an interior design business, fully intending that to be my exit plan. But the pandemic hit, and that kind of like threw everything up in the air, and we moved, and I had sort of in this world learned a lot more about myself and my strengths and my sort of the important things that a profession has to have for me. And meanwhile, I'd been doing my podcast for lawyers leaving the law for years at that point. And all of a sudden I was like, I love this. I love talking to the people who reach out to me, asking me how I've made all these transitions. And it sort of just organically turned into me becoming a coach, helping lawyers and other professionals make these kind of transitions.
That's beautiful. And I have to say, it's funny that you say you had a travel blog, because I had a travel blog too.
Of course.
And so much you said resonated with me, because, and this is important, because for the listeners, I want them to understand what are the early signals of maybe I need to do something different. Like, I remember being very unhappy at my job. What it was paying me a lot of money, right? But
Right.
I was very unhappy. And the thought of looking for another job, and it had nothing to do with being lazy or interviews. I mean, like, I love to talk to people, if you haven't noticed.
Yeah.
My resume has always been ready to go. That's been one of the premises of my career. But I was at a point of my life where, like, even the thought of being in that environment, even if it was the best environment, wasn't suiting to me.
Right.
And because I went through this transformation myself, which you mentioned for you too, I'm like, this is meaningful. This is meaningful. Like, like, I'm sure you get a lot of this, but like when I wake up in the morning and I have texts or messages in Facebook from my clients telling me their wins, it's like, that's just like, I mean, my heart is like beaming, right? Like, this is like what I'm supposed to do, right? So when you are in your career or your job or your business or whatever it is, and feeling it, you're dreading to get up in the morning, this might be early signs of maybe I should start thinking about doing something else.
Yeah. I think it's like a whisper. It starts as a whisper, and that's why we ignore it for so long, right? Because it's not loud enough, and we're just like, well, that's crazy. Like, shh, leave me alone.
Right.
And I think there are all of these sort of systemic reasons. I don't know if this was your experience, but something I experience, I hear a lot from my clients, is like, I should be happy enough. I have this job that's paying me a lot of money. I'm in a better situation than a lot of people. I shouldn't want more.
Right.
And so it almost is like this feeling of like, am I being indulgent to even like want more than I have?
It's imposter syndrome, right? I mean, like,
Yes.
in my case, I came up, I was raised in a lower middle class family in Panama. And I have made more money in my life than anyone that I know.
Yeah.
And so that was like, who do you think you are to live this?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, to today, my mom's still freaking out about the fact that I left my job, right? And it's like, I'm happy. Don't you want your daughter to be happy?
Right. It's well intentioned. It's just that other people aren't in your head and your heart, right? Like, they don't know that this voice keeps talking to you, and that, it's the first step isn't, let me just immediately quit my 6-figure job and jump into something else, right? Like, I don't think any of us who've done this, like, made a
Mhm.
quick decision on
Right.
this, right? It's like
Right.
a gut-wrenching, soul-searching thing to be
Right.
like, am I going to do this for real?
No, yeah, you're
Yeah.
perfectly right, and I think this is like perfect to actually dive into what we're talking about here today,
Yeah.
because many of the reasons why we keep ignoring the voice, pushing it away. I mean, I did that for like 15 years, but like,
Yeah.
it's because what is success defined to be in this society, right?
Yep.
Um, and how we are programmed in a way that success means that you have all these letters after your name. And I mean, I have 2 engineering degrees and an MBA. I mean, you're a lawyer, right? Like, it's like,
Yeah, and I have a master's from going
right?
back for higher ed. Yeah, which was totally unnecessary. But you're like, what? I can't do anything if I don't have the letters by my name to justify that I'm doing it, right?
And it's like, and you're so proud when,
Yeah.
I mean, I remember so proud when I finally got, vice president of what, and, Carmen, and then comma, and then MBA, engineer, ME, and, it's like, oh,
Right.
oh my
Right.
God. Right. And so I don't know if this happens to you, but when I actually wasn't that anymore, and I started saying that I was a coach, like I had an identity crisis.
Oh, yes. Totally identify with that. Yeah. Like when I went to the law school, most people at my level were lawyers, right? You had to be a lawyer to get the job I had. And I never cared about being a lawyer until I wasn't. And then, I hosted lots of groups of international judges and lawyers, and I found myself kind of working in a conversation like, oh, I was a corporate lawyer. Like I practice, like I'm one of you, like, because I felt like they treated me differently when and that may or may not have been true. That could completely have been my
Probably
own
not true,
projection.
but yes.
There was one who definitely was treating me like
Yeah.
the help, but I think it was more me just being like, this has been my sort of, I'm smart, I'm capable, I'm accomplished. That's like, it's just kind of a placeholder. You can say I'm an attorney, and that just bypasses all those things. So it took a while for me to sort of be like, that's not where my value and my strengths, lie in that title. It's like everything else I can show up and do. So I'm totally with you that it took a while to like detach my sense of self from the title that I had spent a lot of time and effort and money getting, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So then let's talk about like, what should success be like? Like what actually should be tied to the definition of success? Because you and me both know that the titles and the position and the status doesn't give it to you. I mean, I had the job, I had the money, and I was miserable.
Right.
And so this is where I decided, okay, the purpose of this life is to be happy. And you might or not agree with you. I know you do, but like people, but I'm going to tell you why. Because the money you want, the relationship you want, the travel that you want, anything you want in life, you want it because you think if you have that thing, you're going to be happy than you are today. So
right.
Ultimately, what you want is happiness. And so I decided that success equal happiness.
Yeah.
And if I'm happy, I'm successful. What do you think?
I agree. And I think that the definition of what those things are is, as many as there are people on the planet, right? Like my success definition may be different from yours because what makes me happy may be different from what makes you happy. And, I was thinking like, I have friends who are, came from law school with, and they're partners in big firms, and they're happy. Like, it's not that those jobs inherently you can't be happy in, but it's, if you're not happy, it's not going to make you happy in the job. Right. So I think it's really like a self-reflection exercise to go, where do I find joy and satisfaction and purpose in the world? And how do I pour more into that and let go of the definitions of what makes you success that I've been handed by society?
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. And it's all so individual, like person by person. And you're right. I mean, not everyone should go quit their job and become a coach or something, because we need the companies, right? And I know a lot of people who are happy at their jobs as well. And that is perfectly fine. But some people have different passions. And it could be even like, I mean, I tell you, like, the only reason I became an engineer is because I was given three careers that I could choose from to go to college. Not going to going not going to college wasn't an option. You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Right.
There's so many double negatives there. That
I hear you. I hear you.
so I could be a doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer. And I I can read obviously, but my strength is numbers has always been. I thought that, God bless doctors, but their lives is really miserable. I have my little sister is a doctor. She's 35, hopefully. and, and she's been studying, like, hopefully she just stop now, right? And
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, at 35, I was partied out and I had traveled over the world and I've done all these amazing things. So
Yeah.
I decided I was going to be an engineer. And, if you give me numbers, I can be happy. So I love to do that. But that's not what I wanted to do. Like, if you put me back with what I know today at 17 years old, what I wanted to do was to be a correspondent to the Travel Channel and travel over the world.
Of course, me too. I was like, that's actually my dream job.
That's what I wanted to do. And you know what? I think I would have been pretty successful and amazing at it.
Yeah. I think we took so many things off the table for us, not just you and me, but just like us collectively take so many things off the table because that's not realistic. You'll never make money doing that, and who knows, but we never even gave these things a shot.
That is actually the key, giving the shot to your dreams. And I think that's a perfect place to pause for a second when we go to a commercial break. And let's retake it there, because I find that a lot of the things I coach my clients on, and I'm sure you too, is like, are you even giving it a shot? Are you even entertaining your dreams? So let's stop for a commercial break and we'll be back in a second.
Hey there! Looking for a breakthrough in your life journey? Well, I got great news for you. As a certified master intuitive coach and master energy healer, I can guide you and support you in unleashing your full potential. Let's work together to identify those subconscious blocks that are keeping you stuck, remove any emotional barrier, and reprogram the limiting beliefs that are keeping you stuck into empowering ones. With my help, let's reframe your story for success and replenish yourself with light and love. You don't have to go through this alone anymore. Let's discover what's holding you back and make lasting changes in your life today. Go to the link below at carmenbento.com to learn more about my coaching services and to schedule a complimentary consult with me today. Remember, it is time for transformation, and I'm so happy to be here to help you make it happen.
Welcome back. Welcome back. We're talking about breaking the mold and challenging what society make us believe success means for women. And I'm here with Megan Smiley, and we were going to retake the conversation talking about giving your dreams, yourself, a chance to even flourish. Right?
Yeah. I think it's, I've had this interesting experience because since I started thinking about leaving the law school, what I learned to be true is maybe not every thought you have and, thing that you might be curious about and want to explore may not be where you land, but just getting on the road of following your interests and your curiosities puts you in the line of like serendipity and things happening. Like for me, I said, I started my podcast, it was fun. I just was bored and I just kind of thought it would be fun. I like talking to people. People would ask me a lot about how I got into my new job, yada, yada. It took years before, and lots of other things that I was exploring before I got the clarity, like, oh, this is it, right? So sometimes you have to get into action, exploring the things that interest you to weed through, okay, and if you get down the road, maybe something isn't for you for one reason or another, but sitting in a room and like trying to know everything and how everything's going to play out in your brain is not very effective.
That is so key there, because two things. One, I find that when you get fixated so much in the final picture that you have, because a lot of times you are in point A and you know in your heart what point W looks like,
Right.
but you have no idea what are the steps in between, but you get so fixated in the end and you're so far out removed to that experience that you just like paralyzed. It's like, free. There's no way I can get there. But then the other thing that happens is that, and this is how I live my life, this is the philosophy. Everything happens for a reason, but even like when I have hired coaches and maybe like things don't go exactly as you thought, but did you learn something that you didn't know before?
Yeah.
And is that pointing you, getting you closer to that next stepping stone that you need?
Right.
And as long as you're moving forward, there is a reason why you needed to learn this thing first. And maybe you needed to explore interior design.
Yeah.
Because it gave you some creativity activation.
100%. I wouldn't have known even though I'd started the podcast for lawyers in transition, it still hadn't occurred to me to be a coach. Like, it literally had not occurred to me. And it wasn't until I got into interior design and just more generally the entrepreneurial space that I started to see. I was like, oh, wow, people are putting things together in interesting ways. Like, I didn't want to be a career coach. Like, I didn't want to look at your resume and be like, okay, so I was like, well, that's what that would be. So that's a hard pass for me. But once I saw like how many different ways you can build something that aligns with sort of exactly what you want to do and what you're good at. But I wouldn't have seen that if I hadn't gotten into the entrepreneurial world in the first place. So I think you're completely right that just taking the steps will help open your eyes and open doors to things that you simply couldn't see from where you're sitting right now.
Yeah. And then the other thing I tell my clients all the time is like, it is okay to put an intention and a vision, but you always have to be open to what else is better, because you have blinders right now. It's like, this is all I know. And the imagination can only go thus far, right? And so it's like, okay, I want, to have a successful business. But if you start putting so many conditions on your dream, then you limit the universe to bring you what you want. And I always like to refer to it as a parent, right? Like, I have kids and they might want X thing today. And I might say, no, but I'm going to give you Y, because Y is better for you. And you might not understand that, but I tell you that Y is better than X.
Right. Yeah. No, it's being open-minded to sort of follow whatever comes up. But those things wouldn't come up if you didn't start down the path. And I
have a funny, I was going to share, because it just came to me. And so that means I need to share like a funny story to like solidify that. So we just came back from a vacation and we left the day before the last day of school. So my 8-year-old was having a meltdown because he was going to miss field day.
Right.
In field day, there was going to be a bouncy house and it's going to be so fun.
Right.
And I'm like, I promise you that this is going to be better. And he was not having any of it. I'm like, kid, we're going to Disney World. And he's like, oh, okay.
Turns out she was right. Mom was right. That is better.
But that's kind of like the same thing, right? Like, in his little 8-year-old mind, he's like, I just want to have fun. Well, I am the universe represented by mom is delivering 100 times more fun than the field house.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's true. But I think it's so uncomfortable for people to open up to the unknown and release control over it. And I'm sure this is true in sort of your corporate experience. I find it to be extremely true of lawyers, which is there's a very clear path. You go to law school, you like go to the on-campus interviews, you get these jobs, like there's a very clear path and you kind of know that you're on it and that you're, doing what you should to get to your goal. So to suggest to someone that they just have to kind of like take a step and see what happens is, I get it, deeply uncomfortable for a lot of people who also don't the success is tied up in the end goal, not the journey for most people, right? So it almost feels like a failure to be like, well, if I don't have the answer, I can't change it until I know the answer. And then that keeps people stuck.
So how are a couple of ways that you help your clients do that?
Yeah. So I have everyone sort of do like foundational self-reflections. So they know, we're also so socialized and taught and trained to sort of function in a certain way. And so people forget actually who they are and what matters to them. So I have them do a number of assessments about their natural strengths, right? Because lawyers will tell you like, I'm good at, writing, or I'm good at attention to detail, and, but then, you look at your natural strengths, not the skills that you've gained in your job, but your natural strengths. And it might be connecting with people. It might be that you have a real nurturing, side to you. And it's, I think helping people see that whoever you are is great. And that there's something, the goal is to find something to do in this world that ties into what you're naturally good at and what lights you up. Right. And what your values are, right? Like most people be like, I talked to a lot of people being like, I don't know, it just doesn't really feel great to just help this one company sue another company, or, a big public company put out, a debt offering, whatever, all this boring stuff, right? But it's like, it just doesn't, and a lot of lawyers actually got into law because they wanted to help people, and then they feel like they're not, right? So there's a values misalignment. So getting clear on what your values are, and then encouraging people to play, be like, this is a safe space to like have an idea and play with it in like, I call them like micro experiments. Like you don't have to quit your job and go do this, but let's explore the idea. And it's okay if it gets left on the cutting room floor, right? Then let's explore another idea. This idea to give people permission to play a little bit.
Right. And you hint this earlier, and I just want to make sure everyone hears it again, right? Like when you have a stable thing, you don't just go quitting without having a plan. Right. A plan. And it's so funny that you mentioned that too, because I am a co-author in a book that's going to be published September 24. I got the date yesterday, and it's called Beyond Certainty, Finding Courage in the Unknown. And my entire chapter is about having the courage to quit your job, basically. And the entire process that I went through. And, there is two types of people: the people who can build a business on the side, and they got to get to a certain level where, they feel comfortable, and then they can do the transition. And that is, I would say, 90% of the people do that. Yeah. And then there's the other 10% crazy people like me who said, F
yeah. And you know what? It's not that you can't do that and it won't work out. It's just sort of recognizing that for people, because it's too big of an ask of your nervous system to do that, or because you have like, I'm not out here trying to gaslight people about financial realities, right? And particularly like people have different circumstances and different responsibilities. And I think it's important to honor that for everybody. But just to say like, that doesn't mean that you can't simultaneously be building something you love while taking care of yourself and being safe.
And the key that you said there was that nervous system stability, right? I also call it the energetic capacity to hold your vibration regardless of what's happening. I'm going to say I have an unfair advantage, and I'm an energy healer. I'm an energy coach. I know how to maintain my vibration regardless of what's happening around me. And that's what I knew. I can do that. But if you by any means think that you're going to freak out and you're going to go into scarcity, that is not the way for you to go.
No, I could not agree more. Yeah, it's because it's, I always say this isn't the path of least resistance. Like, and it's why not everybody has this whisper coming to them. Not everyone has this sort of calling that won't leave them alone. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's why people like us who are having that voice think, I must be doing something wrong because these people down the hall seem fine with being here, right?
Right. Well, I think we are all in the place that we need to be. And, sooner or later, the voice gets loud enough that it's nearly impossible to ignore.
Right.
It starts like a little chirp and then it's like full blown yelling with a
Oh,
megaphone
yeah,
in
I
your ear.
know. I said this to a client recently. It's like, it whispers, it gets louder, then it like punches you in the face. And you're just like, oh, okay, I guess I got to do
I hear you.
something.
Yes. That's so funny.
Yeah.
So, Megan, is there anything else you want to leave our listeners with? And also, where can they find you and
Yeah.
connect with you?
I just would encourage people to not shut themselves off from exploring with the stories of like it's not possible, and to find a safe place to play with ideas, because that's where all of this starts, I think. And in terms of finding me, my website is megansmiley.com. I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn at Megan Smiley ESQ. And my podcast is The Lawyer's Escape Pod, and it's on all regular platforms.
And we'll add all those links with the description of the bio so you can connect with Megan. And I tell you, it'll be a treat. I listen to the podcast and I read her LinkedIn posts frequently, and they are definitely worth checking her out. So thank you so much for joining us from Montana today. Oh, I have a question for you. So you've been in 58 countries.
Yes.
Where is the next one?
That's a good question. We've slowed down over the pandemic, sort of, obviously, I guess. And now we're back up and thinking about where to go. Probably Asia, because we've moved to the West Coast. And so it's sort of Europe and even Africa are like very far away. So I'm thinking it's probably going to be Vietnam next. My husband has been, but I haven't been. So it's, but he loved it. So, maybe Japan, Vietnam, those are right now top on our lists.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I'm going to Egypt in November.
Oh, nice. I've been to Egypt. It was a great experience. Saw the pyramids and all. I was actually only there for like 2 days though, so it wasn't. I can't say I properly did it. Yeah. No, that's what it deserves. This was actually the summer that I quit my job as a lawyer, and I took months off, and I did a month in China, Tibet, and Nepal, and then Turkey, and then Egypt. So it was like just an add-on to another long trip. It is well deserving of more than 2 days.
Yes, beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, that was another thing that I know we kind of connected. So I needed to ask that. So thank you so much for joining us today, Megan. And I'm sure we'll be connecting even further. And make sure you go follow her in social media and go check out her podcast.
And thanks so much for having me, Carmen. This was so fun.
Yes, thank you. And I'll see you next week in another episode of Living Intentionally. Bye-bye. Hey there. Thank you for tuning into today's episode of Living Intentionally, the podcast where we explore ways to live with purpose and fulfillment. If you're new here, make sure to hit the follow button so you never miss an episode. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at The Carmen Benton. I'm your host, Carmen Benton. I'll be back next week with more insights and inspiration.